in being forced to look directly at what every single one of us will have to deal with at some point, it reinforces my thinking even more that it's worth contemplating and thinking about the nature of the universe and our place in it, and not approach this from a sense of denial or thinking that science has actually solved this issue and dismissed from it any concept that there's a transcendent something, call it God. I don't really like the term God because, as we'll talk, in the West, we're handed a concept of a dualistic solution. God up there, separate from us, or maybe he's some spark is in us, but basically it's separate. And we have to worship or appease or whatever. But from a scientific standpoint, that's a totally unsatisfying solution to the problem. Whereas in the Vedanta, this ancient philosophy, they said, no, you've got to go beyond that. The actual reality is only one. And that is spirit. When you talk spirituality, it's not a new agey thing. It's to say that underneath this whole thing is something called spirit, which is what our nature really is. But that word really doesn't convey any information. It's the same as saying that underneath all this is something eternal. Again, eternal is not infinite time. It's outside of time. And we don't have any concept at all of what that means. But the ultimate solution, thinking that there's an infinite something behind all this, and again, we don't know what infinity is. It's not adding another number on. It's completely outside our experience. But if there is something infinite that's underneath this reality, and it's transcendent, and it's whatever it is, spirit, call it whatever it is, there can only be one. There can't be two infinites. And if it's only one, we're part of it, we are it. And that's the end. There's only one, and one without a second. That's the core of Advaita Vedanta. That's the reality. And of course, then you say, well, what the heck is this then? This isn't one. This is diverse. This is multiplicity. It's time, space, and causation. And the answer comes back, well, it's a misperception. We are misperceiving something that's infinite, undivided, unchanging, and I would add, highly super intelligent and playful. Got a wicked sense of humor. And we may not appreciate that humor because at some point we're talking about death. But unless we see that death is the flip side of life, that you can't have one without the other, and each is always in a continuum, will make no sense whatsoever. And so religions is to say, oh yes, God is all good and everything is, we're going up to heaven, which is seen as basically nothing more than an extension of life here, except without all the problems, without pain and sickness and death. Which makes, again, no sense, and is basically probably the most crass form of what I would say is materialism, which is believing that this universe that we're experiencing this way is actual, when in fact it's observable. And if it's observable, the observer can be making a mistake. We can be misperceiving. And everything in the science shows that we are doing that. We're misperceiving this. The science may not talk in terms of the infinite, the undivided, the unchanging being underneath this, but I hope to show, based on wonderful insights of John Dotson, who taught me this, that in fact, First, there's no contradiction in science to the notion that underneath this, instead of nothing, which is what people think, the absence of time, space, and causation is nothing. No. In the absence of time, there's no change. In the absence of space, there's no dividedness. But we don't think this way. But anyway, I think that shining through the physics, the hard science, is the infinite, the undivided, and the unchanging. It's always there. We rely on it. It's in a sense powering us to live and experience this universe. But we're content to stop and just say, okay, this show is real, when in fact it isn't. When in fact a small percentage of humanity throughout time keeps saying, wake up. This is not all there is. And in fact, your nature is the infinite, the undivided, the unchanging. It's so much more spectacular than what we're confined to because you're free. Totally free of all limitations because you are that oneness. Which is an absurd idea. We don't experience that. We have nothing even suggests that. And yet, here's this ancient philosophy, and every time a new religion is established by someone who's experienced this, they say in terms of the culture they're in, the times that they're in, the same thing. Look within first. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. When you find out who you are first, then this will make sense. It's all within. It's always within. And what we're doing right now is looking without. We are convinced that by observing and by trying to make what's finite infinite, we'll figure it out. And that isn't going to work. We have to turn back inside and examine the nature of who perceives this thing. And they say, if you do that, and everybody can do this. There's nobody who's an exception, because that is our nature. And in fact, all of us are going to do this, just like all of us are going to die. We're all going to figure this out. How can that happen? Well, again, from a scientific standpoint, you can't do it in one lifetime. The Hindus, and actually early Christianity, and many religions all have this notion, you come back again and again, and each time you're getting closer, hopefully, solving this mystery. But that's what's going on. You're building experiences. And at a certain point, you get fed up with these experiences. You start to question, generally, by the way, only when there's pain or sickness, or the imminence of death, because for the most part, this is a fun thing, to participate in until it gets nasty. When it gets nasty, we turn within. We start to ask, why is this happening to me? Who's behind this? Or what's behind